Welcome and thank you for clicking on my video. And the big thing we have to talk about today is, did we just set up the next trap? We told you that March was going to be a month where the traps were going to be everywhere. And we very well might have gotten an even deeper trap on one stock that might be hinting we have some upside coming. And therefore, all the bears today want to be careful going into that event tomorrow. And that's why we have to do some technical analysis for the SPY, Qs, Apple, Tesla, Amazon, NVDA, and AMD. And let's get right into it. As we jump into the SPY, I want you guys to have those daily expected moves for tomorrow. We do have 520.50 to the upside, and then we do have 511.08 to the downside, pretty close to this low here. So if we do rotate down, look for that to curl back up. Something very interesting that could happen here is if we actually roll down, get outside of this expected move before that speech happens, and then we actually see that roll back up. So if we see that, it's going to really, stocks are going to look very different if we are going to extended levels or if we are pulling back before we actually get that Fed rate decision. So that's something we really want to pay attention to, but you do have the 30-minute that was able to get back into positive territory. And I just wanted to say today we had a lot of bearish talk in the chat for our live stream. We go live every single morning. Tomorrow we'll be live for that Fed rate decision, okay? But we were overall stating, we were down in this area right here when people were really starting to be like, oh no, it's crashing, this is all over. And there's some stocks that are really suffering, like SMCI and things like that, AMD. But all we have to do is zoom out and be like, you guys, we haven't even lost the 20. Let's look at this overall move in the grand scheme of things. Where do we always react from? The 20, the 20, the 20, the 20, the 20, the 20. So we could just be seeing that pull back a little bit. Doesn't mean we can't see that push higher. But remember, this is our danger zone as we go down into a 2-hour. This is what we were telling you to pay attention to. Yes, it can look really bearish, right? There can be bearish stocks out there, but the SPY's not losing levels. The VIX is going down, and therefore we can see this cross up into positive territory, make some kind of divergence here. So I told you guys early on in the week, I'm like, I think the top side of this range is going to be touched this week, and I think that 50 or 520 is the area we want to pay attention to. And look where that daily range is for tomorrow, 520.50. So we have to pay attention to this area. If we do see that upside early on in the morning, if we see that positivity come around with this MACD crossing, maybe that is a good hint that this is going to be some kind of pop, and then the Fed is actually going to step in and do something a little different. Now, I'm not saying that has to happen. It's just this is the area I'm paying attention to right now. This is an area where we can see a lot of weakness come into this market, but you did get that crossing up, and this is why during the live chat, we were just like, don't get overly bearish in this market. You can notice that over on the Qs, the similar thing here. We're going to give you those ranges first and then talk about it here. But you do have, weirdly enough, the same exact as today, 444.32, which tells me this is probably a very important area right here, the fact that we're doing it twice. So we are curling up, but we're not in positive territory yet. So we're not going to see that bullishness yet. But we can break through this flag and see that get pretty bullish. Is that going to get resistance at the weekly expected move, or are we going to see kind of something crazy happen? Maybe even head towards that monthly expected move. Now, I don't think all that would happen tomorrow, right? That would take some time to build up to there. Maybe that's next week or something like that. But this crossing over on the MACD, we can get into positive territory there. So to the downside, 432.84. If we do see some weakness early on in the day, just look for that to create that double bottom, right? We were talking about possibly a double bottom down here before this even happened last night. And we were just saying, hey, this could double bottom down here and make a lot of sense, grab some liquidity and head higher. Well, as long as we're remaining in this channel here and we can see that break through, pretty positive move coming, and very interesting that the dailies are really close to those weekly expected moves. Something to pay attention to there, but people were getting very, very bearish on all the tech stocks, and I understand this one a little bit better, right? This one, we did lose the 20 once, and then we're losing it again, but overall in these pullbacks with the Qs, what do? When we see the pullback, usually we react off the 20, we react off the 20. At times, we see that pull below, kind of in between the 20 and the 50, and we see that buy back up, 20, in between the 50, bought back up, 20, 20. So, and then now we're in between the 20 and the 50, seeing that buy back up. So this is taking back all of the moving averages. So this is what we were warning today on the live show. Please do subscribe and join us for those live shows so you can watch some of this stuff live with us in the morning. Now, tomorrow, most likely, we are just doing that stream during the Fed rate decision, so we won't be able to talk about a lot of this stuff. So make sure these are on your charts and pay attention out there. Now, the 30-minute for the Qs is something that I wanted to mention just in case we see some downside in the morning. thing. This thing's very close to negative territory. We just want to see if we're going to see this get dramatic. We're going to see some crazy stuff. We're going to break through this level, retest, break through again. But if we remain in this channel, we always have the opportunity to come back. We can create some kind of divergence down here. I'm not leaning towards that. I think we might see a little dip down in the morning and see that scooped up by end of day, and we actually might end up at that weekly expected move. So I'll be paying attention to where stocks are before, and we can talk about that. I'll go live about 30 minutes before that Fed rate decision comes out. But right now, 30-minute right in the middle, okay? So as of right now, the morning is a 50-50. You could see that strength come in, prove that this 2 hour is strong, go into positive territory, and then we have to see what the Fed has for us. Apple, this on the 2 hour, still seeing that strength, but this is very worrisome being in this zone with that big news tomorrow. And we could see that, drop back off. So I'm really looking for if this 2 hour wants to roll over by end of day tomorrow. That could be a good signal because that weekly expected move, if you're part of the Patreon, you know where that weekly expected move is. It's somewhere right up in here. We've already touched it once. Do we go outside of it tomorrow? That might be a big hint for Apple. But if Apple wants to recover from where it is from, it most likely will have to break through a weekly expected move. But as of right now, we can kind of see how this looks still pretty flaggy on the daily scale. So if we do go up like this tomorrow, maybe we see some positivity. We could just be crashing back down. I would like to buy into Apple with some kind of divergence, as this is a dramatic move. We have a high probability of seeing that ABC proven. So if you need those risk ranges for the individual stocks, if you're trading Apple, NVDA, Tesla, Amazon, AMD, all these things, you can go click the link down in the description because it's a very, very good tool to have, especially once volatility starts to creep up. Now, on the 30-minute here, this is kind of something I'm paying attention to, seeing a small divergence form up here. Okay, so if we can get a little bit more strength in Apple, you can see this does not look the strongest on the MACD from a momentum perspective. But if this wants to, we could see a push higher and then maybe form some kind of divergence, or maybe we just keep kind of consolidating very awkwardly for Apple, but maybe we just come down like this and then we see that push higher, create some kind of divergence up there on like a 2 hour or 1 hour. So we really just have stuff to pay attention to, but Apple, very, very close to its weekly expected move again. So it's time to be a little cautious as it's only going to be Wednesday tomorrow. Tesla, this has a similar thing to Apple. We saw that strong move. You guys know this is the trade I was in on Monday. Took my profit. Now I'm not messing around because we're right at that weekly expected move somewhere up in this area. So it's good to have those moves, but we can see this curl back up, right? We can see that continued strength. I would pay attention to this 180.92 held as resistance plenty of times back here, and then we saw that drop off. So what we'd want to see is, if we do this, do we get some kind of divergence up here that kind of hints that the momentum has died out, and maybe we get the sell-off the next day going on into Thursday. So what I wanted to show you was the 2 hour here. If the 2 hour is able to cross back down into negative, let's say we get this push. If we get this push, we might go positive for a brief moment, but we might be curling back down. These divergences down here, right? Flatness of the MACD, not on the RSI, which tells you this is most likely just some kind of pullback to then go down again. So whether that is going to be, set up that higher low or something like that, we'll talk about that in the future. But if this sees some positivity and just rolls back down into negative territory, it doesn't mean the best things for Tesla, and it doesn't mean the best things for Apple. Amazon, this one was really simple, right? We showed you guys the 15-minute, right? We did this live. We showed you guys the 15-minute, and I was overall stating, almost yesterday, actually, I was stating this could double bottom down here in some way. Okay, so look for some kind of double bottom. Look at that. We double bottom. We get the divergence on the MACD on the RSI at the same time. We're starting to scoop up, get that handle, get that cup and handle going. Maybe we could project higher. I'm really looking for the 2 hour to cross. I really want this 2 hour to cross. If that happens, we could see a positive move in Amazon, make another new high here. So if we actually see that cross in the morning and see that extended strength, we could be getting some kind of rug pull at higher prices throughout the day tomorrow. But really have to wait for this to cross into positive territory, set up another point of divergence before we talk about any kind of rug pull. But just know the Fed is stuck in a hard place, and we're going to talk about yields at the end of this video. This is something we need to talk about, and this is why I was telling people, hey, zoom out, go to a daily. Is this that bad? NVIDIA moves by 1 and 2 and 5% all the time. So seeing it drop down to this area, we just marked off these lows here, and we were like, hey, if it doesn't break through here, if it doesn't cross the 20, close below that, it's really not looking bad. It's just in between the 20. We react from that area a lot of the time. We react from the 20, right? A lot of the time when we do get those pullbacks, we react, kind of go sideways off the 20 and the 50 here. But when we've gotten, significant pullbacks, I guess, more significant than just riding the 5-day, we get a reaction off the 20, okay? So the fact that we're holding above the 20, we just don't want to get overly bearish. We could see one more push higher, and we don't want to, take any trades this week that can just ruin us before we actually see the rug pull. Okay, so that's something you really want to pay attention to. The reason I say this is we were watching a 2-hour. I was just like, watch, this 2-hour can go up. If we lost the 20, I'd be talking differently, but guess what? This 2-hour can cross up into positive territory. Not saying it can't go down. It's right by the center line. If we wanted to go negative, okay, this is going to break. I'm going to break through this base. That's what we were saying. Now, if this wants to go up, I'm going to see this cross. I might see a surge in the morning, and then that could be ripped away from the Fed. So this is really where we have to pay attention, as people were getting very, very, very bearish right here, and then we see that buy back up by end of day. That's very cool to see after the live video. So do I think NVIDIA could go to 1,000? I can tell you this. I believe it might. But I would say if I see any kind of upward move, I am going to be paying attention to my weekly expected moves. Any move down, any move up tomorrow, I'm going to be paying attention to my weekly expected moves if it is a big move. The market this week pricing in a huge move from NVIDIA. It's like 10% up or 10% down. So that would just tell me we haven't seen that big move yet. Maybe tomorrow we see that big move. And that's what we want to pay attention to. Remember, we just trade like water out there, and that's why we don't want to get overly bearish, overly bullish until we see the actual trend flip to bearish. Right now, you're just seeing a pullback. We've seen this many, many times where we go down towards the center line, we curl right back up, and what happens? NVIDIA goes up by another 15, 20%. Okay, so you have to be very careful trying to short. When you're just in consolidation, you haven't seen those bearish signals proven yet. You're about to curl over on this 2-hour MACD. Could see higher prices in NVIDIA tomorrow. This is one we were talking about live as well, AMD. AMD seeing a lot more pain. This one was one we were like, okay, this one makes a little bit more sense to be bearish. It makes a little bit more sense, but this could just be an overall pullback. It's coming back into a point of good liquidity. Last time we got the breakout, we were right at this level. So reacting to the 50, like I said, a lot of the time we just reacted down to the 20, the 20, the 20, we kind of rode that a little bit, but we did dip below it. So we're getting our first real test of the 50, and we're seeing these moving averages point down pretty dramatically. So if AMD wants to recover here, it's going to need some strength tomorrow, because if this just moves up like this, up to 190, and then rejects, that could be very bad. We're going to bottom Bollinger, and then maybe we see a reaction from there to make like a right shoulder, right? We could see this left head and right shoulder form down in this area. So I just wanted to point out, though, on the 2-hour, if this bad boy is able to curl up, it's been beat down for quite some time. So this thing could see some positivity. Why were we mentioning that live? Well, it's those weekly expected moves over on Patreon. We just noticed it's getting really, really close towards that weekly expected move. And so we want to pay attention if this 2-hour curled up and got into positive territory, and that could happen tomorrow. Now, I did just want to say on the 15-minute, we started to curl down towards the end of the day. All right, we started to curl down towards the end of the day, so maybe you need some kind of 15-minute divergence in the morning before this thing really sees some strength. But AMD, it is looking weaker, right? It's losing the 20, so we have to make sure we know about that, but it's right on the 50 at this point, and it saw some buying back up. So don't be caught off guard if this wants to break this wedge to the upside and start to see a strong move. The VIX, we called this pretty well on the VIX, okay? So thank you so much if you're subscribed and you find this info helpful. If you show up to the live video, you always like the videos. That's very, very cool. We have people donate. Thank you guys so much for everything you guys do. It's awesome. And we were talking about this. Well, we saw these divergences up here. What happens after that? Well, we mentioned right here, we can roll over the 2-hour. So we've officially rolled the 2-hour down into negative territory. We can see some positivity come in as of tomorrow. Will we come down all the way to about 13 and fill this gap down here? Are we going to stop at this low down here, or are we going to stop right here? So really, I'm just looking for some kind of possible divergence right here to give me a little hint. And I'm going to go back to my stocks and see if I see divergences the opposite way at the same time. That's a very good way to use the VIX, at least in my experience. And that's what I'm doing here. I just wanted to show you guys the daily scale. Are we in crash territory? Everyone's screaming crash at you right now. Well, guess what what we just did on the VIX. We rejected off the 200 again. We're actually closing just on the 50, so you have some probability to see this go up, but this is a pretty strong bar down, and so we could see that actually come down and then wick up. That would actually be better. If you kind of come down, wick up, and get above the 50 by end of day, that might be a better sign that volatility is coming back in this market. The MACD able to cross down, get a red impression on the histogram. That just means we could buy ourselves a few days here, and then you want to see if that curls back up in positive territory. Really think something bad is around the corner, and that's because of these yields. Now they are starting to come off, so this could be a sign of something. All right, we do have divergence on the daily scale here for these yields. All right, so we could get, I mean, if we're following momentum and we're trying to get a hint from this, we could say maybe the Fed is going to project some kind of cut. We really want to pay attention to that. Their Fed interest rate decision, cool, awesome. They're probably not going to change it. But they've been saying we're going to give some cuts in 2024 by the end of the year. If they actually put a date on that, people might see that as good news initially. We're seeing this divergence up here. We were talking about TLT as well, so if this wants to pull back, TLT can see a pop. And we were just talking about how it could double bottom down in this area. It actually stopped around that point. So I'm accumulating just a little bit more right here in case we see this, really start to head upward. I'm seeing those yields back off. So we just really want to be aware of everything that's going on in the market. And the thing about these rate cuts, if they project some kind of rate cut, if they give a date for when they think they're going to make their first rate cut, you have to be very cautious because right now they said they're not in control of inflation. So if they cut rates fast, then that would mean that something is breaking in the system, because if something breaks in the system, we go into recession, they don't have to worry about hyperinflation as much. But if they just cut rates for no reason and nothing breaks, we most likely will be seeing either stagflation or hyperinflation come back into this market. And that is going to be very, very bad for everyone's wallet whenever they go to the grocery store. So really pay attention to tomorrow. And overall, TLT looks like they did their job. They're forcing the Fed to do something, but will they actually do something tomorrow, or will they give us a dud and let this craziness continue? Last thing I just want to talk about here, the dollar, seeing that creep up, but you're seeing it start to fade. Okay, so you're fading back below the 200, but you got that crossing. Once this goes into positive territory, we might see some kind of reaction down first, right? Get some positivity in the market if we get some good news. So we'll be live to tell you guys about these things, but this was flagging. We've seen that break out, but a lot of the time the dollar can break out before the market actually tops. So we could see a new high in the SPY, maybe not in the Qs, maybe could see a new high in NVDA, but not in AMD. So it's just looking like we're going to see this dollar rip to the upside, and something very, very, very bad is coming, and they're not telling us what that thing is, and I believe it might be a huge banking crisis. So the main takeaway here is we do not want to get overly bullish or overly bearish until we see the actual signals on the daily scale really flip over. Until we lose that 20, then we can say lower prices are coming. But as of right now, I'm seeing wedges. I'm seeing things hit the bottom side of their weekly expected move. I'm seeing 2 hours that really want to curl up. So there could be possibility today or tomorrow, but will that be ripped away from the Fed? That's why we're going to be live tomorrow. So come in, join us, ask questions, chat about stuff. We'll watch everything live, and it's a lot of fun, and I appreciate you guys coming by every single morning. And now we're doing it in the afternoon, though, so make sure you remember that. We're going to be in the afternoon tomorrow, and I really just hope you guys can be trading like water out there. Stay safe out there. Have a great, great night, and I hope you have all the luck in the world trading tomorrow. Peace.